Bienvenue. Nous avons plaisir d'accueillir avec nous aujourd'hui l'ambassadeur pour l'Union européenne, Son Excellence Monsieur Vincent Degers. So welcome, Mr. Ambassador, and thank you for joining us today. My first question to you, how would you qualify the relationship between the EU and Seychelles at this moment?
Well, I think the relation is actually excellent, to be honest. We have had the visit of the President together with Minister Radagon and Mr. Ferrari to Brussels. We had a big gathering of all the EU leadership together with the African leadership from all countries that came to Brussels. So we had intensive discussions, and there was also bilateral talks between the President and Mrs. van der Leyen, our President of the Commission, and also with our High Representative for the Foreign Affairs. And I think everybody was very, very pleased and very impressed also by the work that the Seychelles have been doing. You had these elections, yes, almost 2 years ago now, or 1.5 years ago, and elections went well, which is good news because not always the case in Africa in general terms. So we're very pleased with that. The transition from one government to the other went also very smoothly. So I think on all of these elements we have seen Seychelles as, let's say, a good model for Africa and much beyond Africa actually as well in terms of democratic process. We are very much attached to values of democracy, rule of law, and also if you take rule of law, for example, as well, we've seen a number of progress with the freedom of the press as well. They have gained positions in the ranking in this respect. We've also seen that for the fight against corruption, for example, where there has been a number of progress also that have been noted in this respect. So today, you know, in the world, it's not every country that can show such a positive track in this respect. Of course, there was the coronavirus crisis, which has affected everyone. But even there, I think the government has taken very clear decisions in a very difficult context on the sanitary front, of course, but also allowing the country to reopen rather quickly, thanks to the vaccination, the intensive vaccination. President was the first president in Africa also to get vaccinated in front of the cameras, which it shows leadership and also sends a strong message when this happens. And then this has allowed Seychelles to open rapidly again its borders and to attract again and relaunch the touristic activities in due course. So this is, I think, a very positive element. At the same time, there were financial difficult decisions that needed to be made because there was less money coming into the treasury for that moment, and everybody had to make an effort. The whole population had to make an effort to recover. What is good is when you look at the recent IMF report in January, they are saying, well, this recovery is materializing. That means that these were the right decisions because now the recovery time has come. Of course, there's another crisis that has been coming up in the meantime, unfortunately. We can discuss about that as well. But I mean, generally speaking, coming back to your question, Shelda, really the relationship is really good, and we are, I think, on both sides very committed to tackle the new challenges that are coming up. Climate change is an obvious one that we have to deal with. We have this biodiversity issue that we need to address. Plastic pollution is another big challenge. So there's a huge number of challenges that we have to address. And I must say that we always have a very good discussion, both at international level, because there are a number of conventions, international treaties that are negotiated and discussed. And I think with Seychelles, we really go, I would say, hand in hand when we go to defend these positions, and this is very reassuring.
Seychelles currently stand in the 23rd position when it comes to fighting against corruption. And recently, the Reporters Without Borders ranked Seychelles 13th in the world. So how do you see Seychelles? How is Seychelles being seen in the eyes of the EU?
I think for us it's an excellent performance. I think it's the first country in Africa in terms of freedom of press, so it's something to be noted. And it's something very important because we see it in the world of today. Sometimes people are saying democracy is backtracking in a number of places. Autocratic countries are improving, and freedom of press is a clear signal of that problem. And here we have the country. We have a country that is making progress into this perspective. So that's even getting among the first countries in the world, which is quite impressive. That sends for us a very strong signal that we have to continue to work into that direction, and we are very happy to team up with Seychelles on that. On the corruption front, very important as well, because we know that corruption is the root of autocratic behaviors and disappearance of democracy in a sense. I worked a lot in Haiti before coming here as ambassador to Seychelles, so I could see, unfortunately, I would say, the difficulty that the country of Haiti had to face and is facing even today, because after corruption comes import of arms, comes all kinds of gangs that are developing, financed by that money, that dirty money, so to say. And this really affects democracy profoundly. And today, people in Haiti don't have security. You cannot walk in the streets as you want. There are kidnappings happening, all kinds of developments which are harming, of course, the country's potential of development. So it is very good to be working with Seychelles, having had that kind of difficult experience. It's good to see that in Seychelles it's the country. It has not been automatic, let's put it that way. When we had a program actually with the agency when it was created, and we started that program under President Faur's time at that moment. What was important for us is that there is an investigative capacity in the field of corruption that exists now in Seychelles. There's a good legal framework for the agency to operate. They have also prosecutorial responsibilities in that respect. So the system has been put in place. Now the system has to deliver. There will be cases they will win, there will be cases they may lose. This is not my problem. I mean, I'm not interested in the persons or what happened. What I'm interested in is that we have a system in place that is dedicated to fight against corruption, that the message is very clear, and actually the best message is the preventive message.
Now you are the ambassador for the Indian Ocean region. So what's the interest? Why the interest in fisheries?
I had this interest from the start, and now as ambassador I'm looking at the agreements that we have with Seychelles, with Mauritius, with other countries in the region as well, because there are challenges obviously. First of all, these agreements have evolved quite strongly over the years, let's put it that way, because there is pressure on resources in the sea for different reasons. Overfishing is one of the reasons. Illegal fishing and unreported fishing is another good reason for that. The techniques of fishing have been developing quite strongly. We have these fads, these fishing devices that are used now. So all that has evolved quite strongly. And with Seychelles, we have one of the biggest agreements that the European Union has in this respect, because we are paying authorizations to go fishing for our fleet to Seychelles for 50,000 tons in this context, and this is a budget. If you add what we are paying for the access to the waters and what each of the armateurs are paying, fishing vessels are paying for the capture that they do, it's roughly a 58 million euro agreement. So it's quite for 6 years. So it's a very big amount of money. So it's more than 9 million euros per year that the European Union is paying to the treasury of Seychelles to have access to these potentials. So this is, I think, very, very important. Within that agreement, there is a sectorial part or structural part that is dedicated to helping local fishing, local fishermen in that respect. This morning I was in Glacis with Minister Ferrari to open a new infrastructure that we have built. We have built already half a dozen of such infrastructure. I was also in La Digue where it exists as well. So we are having these. There will be more this year coming out. There is two of them in Pralin. There is one in Anse-Lapin and one in Cascade also that we have on the books to be done, precisely to help fishermen to have a proper infrastructure, proper kind of marketplace where they can put their fish. They have sometimes ice capacity also to produce the ice to keep the fish there. And there's this parking in front, so people can safely stop, go out of their car, go and buy the fish from the fishermen. So for the local communities, it is something very useful and very appreciated from that perspective. What we do also with the money of the fishing agreement that we have is try to develop other new capacities here in Seychelles. Aquaculture is one of the capacities. So there is a breeding ground that has been built in the harbor here to have small olives that you produce, so the small fishes that we grow there, that can then be used for aquaculture. It's not yet the case, so it's a challenge to find people that will invest in the field of aquaculture and make these new developments. So this is something for the future also that we are looking into. So these agreements, to come back to your initial question, are quite essential for Seychelles, for the European Union, because we are also bringing all of what we fish to Seychelles for transformation. So if you take the coronavirus crisis, there was a drop in the resources from the tourist industry, but on the contrary, you could increase the exports of tuna, obviously, to the European market. So this has also allowed Seychelles to keep revenues coming to the budget. So this activity, there are jobs. There are more than 2,000 jobs here in the transforming industry here in the harbor, which is doing this canned tuna, which is exported to the whole of the world, but mainly to Europe at this moment in time. So, and for us, it's very important because our consumers are getting more and more attentive, saying, where are those tuna being fished? How are they fished? Is this legal, not legal, and so on and so forth? So I think there is a common interest between the EU and Seychelles in that respect to make sure that we have tuna that is properly fished, brought here, transformed here, creating jobs and funds and export funding, and then exported to the European market. So I always say it's a win-win operation. As I said, not without challenges. Illegal fishing and unreported fishing is a challenge because it is estimated about there is 30% of illegal fishing going on in the Indian Ocean altogether. So this is a challenge. I think here, even in Seychelles, even in the territorial water, just a few weeks ago, there were several boats that were apprehended because of their illegal activities in that context. So the fight there has to be strong. So we are also having programs. This is next to the agreement, what we call maritime security programs, where we are supporting the countries of the region in developing their capacity. That means you have this center here, operational center here, which has a cartography of all the Indian Ocean. They can see where the boats are, which boats they are, where they come from, what kind of activities they are doing. And they can detect if there are suspicious behaviors of these boats and then decide, do we do an operation at sea and do we send the Coast Guards, do we send the douanier to go and see what's happening and to be able to really fight against these illegal fishing activities, because this is really harming the stocks in the Indian Ocean. Then also there is, and this is the reason why the Minister Ferrari had gathered, I think, some of the ministers of the region here to Seychelles to discuss the next meetings of the Tuna Commission, Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, and which is very good, I think, because it's good that the countries go together. First, that they have time to discuss and prepare for this important gathering, and then they go together with a joint position to say, oh, we, the countries of the region, we want to continue to work with you. That's one of the conclusions, I hope. But we want some adaptations, and we want to reduce the the overfishing, obviously, because otherwise the stocks are going to be depleted, and we have to be very careful on that. We need scientific evidence to calculate this. How much? Is it 10% reduction, 15, 20%? Last year we had a strong reduction as European fleet has more than 20%, so this is already something that is discussed. So I think I very much welcome the relationship that we have with Seychelles, because we have a very frank and direct dialogue with the minister and his team, the SFA as well, so we can really see what is the interest, our joint interest, to make sure that we can continue fishing in the future and can continue eating good tuna as well in that respect. So that works honestly extremely well. I'm also very satisfied to see that the ministry has been able to build these infrastructures I was mentioning before, and actually the absorption of the program is very high. We have a rate of 90% of absorption or consumption, let's say, use of the money, and it's good use of money. We are controlling, of course, very carefully how the money is being used, but generally speaking, the performance, and it's not the case everywhere, I can tell you, we are very satisfied with the way the money is being used and the rate of consumption, which is really impressive.
Okay, while you are reviewing, going through the agreement before its expiration in 2026, are you also considering a revision in the tariff?
No, I don't think. No, the tariff has been fixed for the whole period, as I say, for the 6 years period. So we are. There are, as I said, close the rendezvous where we can review these kind of things.
The next agreement.
Well, this will be for the negotiators to decide. You know, there's always a negotiations on the respective interests, because we also have to be able to sell the end product to the consumers. If you raise the prices without taking into account the interest of the consumers, you may face difficulties at a certain point of time. It happens also that sometimes we pay license for access to for number of access to a number of level of captures that sometimes is not used by our fleets. So we have certain situation like that. So if we go too much, too high, let's say on the request for the price that we pay for the fishing activities, then you may have the reverse effect in this respect. So let's again, it's a negotiation. So we have good negotiators on both sides. It's up to them to do that job.
On the international front,
yes.
In what way can the European Union support small island developing states?
Well, I think there are just several ways to do that. First thing is to try to define clearly what is the blue economy, the concept, what do we want to do out of this concept, what is sustainable, what is not sustainable. It's clear that from the European Union perspective, we don't like too much seabed mining, obviously, certainly not for fossil activities. So this is something we would rather be tempted to discourage going, because we see how much harmful this can be for the preservation of our planet. So this is, if we want to reduce consumption of fossil fuel, we should stop also searching for it inside the seabed of the ocean. So this is to find the right balance between preservation and exploitation. This is really the fine tuning that we need to do in respect of that. And there are other issues. Fishing is, of course, that we discussed, one of the activities that can be, and that can be aquaculture and other types of fishing that can be organized for that purpose. There is a lot of resources in terms of algae and their capacities for cosmetic or medical use in that respect. I know there is some research here being carried out in university on this application. So this is something of a new development, new potential, which is not so harmful as seabed mining, as I was mentioning before. So there are. Let's try to define what are the concepts that we can develop, and what is the potential that is there, and then is to try to to make these project viable projects, economically viable projects. We are organizing here in September in Seychelles precisely a big event which is called Blue Invest, which is bringing together innovative projects for the blue economy coming from all over Africa. It's not just projects from Seychelles, it's projects from all over Africa. They will be meeting here in Seychelles, and they will have the opportunity to present their projects to potential investors. So we're bringing developing agencies, banks, seed capital investors, and so on and so forth. So there will be about 150 persons gathering to actually see 25 very good and very innovative projects and match this project with potential investors to be able to develop these activities. So but that's very concrete and more precise, as you mentioned before. So this is the type of activities that we want to do. What we also want to do with Seychelles, and that's what we have been doing for years actually in this respect, is to try to speak with the same voice when we go to international conferences. When we had this conference on plastic pollution, which is a problem for Seychelles, a huge problem. Aldabra is a very good example of how much plastic can end up on these beautiful beaches. So if we want to reduce the plastic pollution, we have to push both on the international scene, because plastic since 70 years has been, the production has been multiplied by 250. So do we need 250 more times plastic than we used to have 60 or 70 years ago when I was born? I mean, this is, I remember very well when I was a kid, there was no plastic bottles. This came afterwards. Do we really need that much plastic in our environment? And we all know that most of that plastic is going to end up either in the landfills, which are oversaturated, or worse, it goes directly into the sea. It's I think 1 truck per minute that goes into the sea worldwide. But if we don't do anything, it's going to be 2 in 2030. It's going to be 4 in 2050, because we continue producing plastic like that. It's exponential increase. So, coming back to your question, what can we do? We need to go to international conference and have clear resolutions, again, worldwide, because if one makes an effort in one part of the world, the other one continues to, on the contrary, to produce more and more, it doesn't match. So we really have to have a common agreement, internationally speaking, to actually make an effort to reduce this plastic pollution, and to do things with different products which are biodegradable in this respect. So we can replace, we have this single plastic products, like forks, knives made of plastic. Ban, stop, throw that out. Same thing for the plates, plastic plates. Same thing for the coton-tige that we use. Why do we use plastic? That's not used. Let's throw that and finish producing these, because these are going directly into the ocean, and turtles, other animals, dolphins and others are unfortunately eating these. And the fishes even. We see today that the microplastic is huge, what we have in the oceans, and that we are going to eat the fish, and we're going to eat the same plastic as the fish have been eating before. I think we are eating 1 credit card per year as a human being. I don't like eating credit cards myself, so I prefer good fish without plastic in this respect. So this is what we need also to do jointly, the European Union and Seychelles, to really defend this position very strongly. We can also do a last thing, which is lead by example. And this is also what Seychelles has been doing by saying, okay, there is 30% of our waters which will not be exploited, which will remain a safe haven, let's say, for the biodiversity in this respect. We have taken similar positions at the level of the EU, so we are preserving also the rivers and so on and so forth. So we take measures to really make areas which remain totally protected, where man cannot interfere and intervene and change the ecosystem in this respect. So this is this is what we need to do, and to show to other countries you can do the same. So let's try to create these spaces where nature can really continue to live and to grow untouched. Because the pandemic of the coronavirus has taught us this. Clearly, if we don't respect nature, well, we get coronavirus, and we may get other diseases, similar diseases in the future. If there is climate change or climate deregulation, as we say, we could face much more difficult challenges in the future.
What about drug trafficking?
What about?
Drug trafficking.
Well, actually, yesterday, as part of my visit here to Seychelles, I was briefed by our French Navy, who is in the harbor these days, that they had within a period of 1 month, they did 7 interceptions in the Indian Ocean in the so-called SMARC route that exists, where it's trafficking of heroin and amphetamine as well in this respect. And then they went a little bit more north, and this is what they call the Hashish Highway, and they made 3 additional interceptions altogether. It has been more than 8 tons of drugs that have been intercepted and destroyed by the frigate Floréal from the French Navy. So we were briefed on that. So what we are doing, this is what we are doing. You know that for 15 years almost now, we have our Atalanta operation in the Indian Ocean. Has been very successful to fight against piracy. So this has been something which has almost totally disappeared. It was quite intense. It was harming tourists, was harming fishing, was harming the security of the citizens here per se. So this has, in a way, disappeared thanks to this joint investment again that we have made. We have been bringing the assets, the military assets at the sea, the vessels, the frigate, and so on and so forth. And we were able to work with Seychelles and other countries here in the region on what we call the legal finish. So bringing the perpetrators to justice, to be sentenced and brought to prison. So this is what we want to continue to do. The threat of piracy has reduced or has almost disappeared now. We have to be prudent because always can come back. That is an issue, but there are new threats. Obviously, drugs trafficking is a very, very serious one, harming Seychelles and all the countries of the region, also for local consumption, as we know from that perspective. So we are very much engaged with our Navy for that. I also came here to discuss with the authorities on the adaptation of our agreement, because it's not the same international conventions that deal with drug trafficking and with arms trafficking and with piracy. So we need to adapt a little bit the legal framework. So we are negotiating a new agreement in that respect, so that if we intercept drug traffickants at sea, we can bring them here with a boat to be brought to justice. Because among these interceptions, one of the boats was the second time that we have been intercepting it. So obviously, if we want to have a real deterrent effect, it's also if we are able to capture the crew and the criminals and bring them to court and get them properly sentenced. It's not enough, so to say, to make catch and release, as we say, to catch the drugs and to destroy it immediately in the sea. But it's better if we can also have this more deterrent effect by bringing the perpetrators to courts and having them sentenced in this respect. So that's what I'm discussing with the authorities these days. I'm also having contact with other countries to do the same. But I must say that, I would say, as usual, I'm very happy to say that Seychelles is really ahead and very committed also on that front in working with us on this matter, because it's, again, a joint interest. This drugs traffic partly was going to probably Seychelles. So it's clear that there is a common interest to really be efficient together, the most efficient we can. And again, I want to thank the authorities because they have been really extremely committed to these negotiations, and we have been really making good progress. I hope we have soon a new adapted agreement with this new field that we can catch. There are other challenges that will come: charcoal trafficking, human trafficking, illegal fishing, as we mentioned before. All of that we also need to be working together to be more efficient at sea, and that we have maritime port security. You mentioned the port as well. This is all the products are going through the ports at the end of the day. So it's very important that the port security is well managed. We have had an agreement with Interpol to come to train the countries of the region to reinforce and beef up their capacity at the port to make the proper control system and mechanism in place. I'm very happy. Here again, we had the training last week. It worked very, very well as well. So gradually we are, well, the traffickers are increasing their capacity. We also have to increase our own capacity in this building. And the other last point is that the harbor that is behind me here needs to be renovated because the capacity is full at the moment. There is too much boats coming at the same time and there's not enough capacity to handle all of that. On top of that, you need to separate petrol from tourists, from fish and other products coming. So there is a need to renovate, and we are happy that we have a very good project for 35 million euros. It's a joint project with the investment bank, European Investment Bank, the Agence Française de Développement, and ourselves with a grant to actually make all this renovation, because the port here of Mahé is a lifeline for Seychelles. I think everybody is aware and everybody knows that, but it's important that we do a proper renovation. It really deserves it now to be done. We are very happy again to have this strategic partnership between the EU and Seychelles.
Mr. Ambassador, you had something to say about the Russia and Ukraine war and the impact maybe it has on the kind of relationship we had?
Yes, first of all, I want to say that I'm very thankful for Seychelles, and the government here was taking a very clear position, which is the same position we have, that there cannot be a violation of the Charter of the United Nations and other treaties, international treaties that exist. This Russian aggression, because it's not really a war between Ukraine and Russia, it's actually an aggression by your neighbor to Ukraine in this respect. So this is, as we say, unjustified and unprovoked war that has been conducting. It's not a special operation, contrary to what President Putin is saying. It's a real war, actually, with many casualties, with many people suffering, with a lot of destructions. We're talking about 500 billions of destruction of assets, of schools, hospitals, harbors, bridges, railway connections. All of that has been destroyed by this war, which has absolutely no justification except from imperialistic wishes of the Russian president in this respect. So this cannot be acceptable, this cannot be tolerated, and the international community altogether has expressed its view very, very clearly. There were 2 resolutions which were voted by more than 140 countries in the world, including Seychelles, as I said. The other point is also that not only do we have war, but we have war crimes that are committed, including rapes and killings in this respect, killings of young, elderly, everybody actually in this context, in dreadful conditions. This is absolutely unacceptable, and this has also been raised in the UN context, and Russia has been suspended from the Human Rights Council. And again, we thank Seychelles for their clear and strong support in condemning these acts, which are absolutely horrible and unacceptable. So this is, I think, extremely important. It also has consequences for all of us. It's not just that is Ukraine that is suffering terribly, and the population there that is suffering, but all of us are suffering in a sense, because this war is bringing inflation in energy production. We see that the petrol prices, the gas prices, everything is growing by 10, 20, 30% sometimes. So this will impact you and me when we go to the grocery or whatever. We will have this kind of problems. Food is actually, yes, a very substantial problem for many countries in the world, because Ukraine used to produce, I think, 30% of the exports of wheat and sunflowers. Obviously, all of that now is on stop because of the Russian aggression, again, because Russia is blocking the harbors of Ukraine, which used to export through its harbors to the other countries, notably in Africa. So this has serious consequences. We are trying to help Ukraine to export via railway to the other European countries, and then from there to export to the African countries as well, or Asian countries as well. So this is very difficult, of course, and less easy than it used to be before. Russia is also sometimes shelling the silos where these grains are stocked. This is another type, or sometimes stealing even what is there. So this is really affecting each and every one of us. So the message is very clear. Russia has to stop its operation, has to withdraw its armies from Ukraine, has to go back to the table of negotiations, because there were negotiations, discussions were ongoing, and this is just unacceptable that somebody uses the force to impose its views on its neighbors. This is really unacceptable. I understand that Seychelles, being a small country, is very very concerned also by these kind of behaviors, but we are also very concerned, not to forget that this is also bringing us to some very scary past. We didn't have such a war on the European continent for the last 70 years. And this war can bring us to some escalation. And we're talking about chemical, we're talking even about nuclear means that can be used. This is really meaning that it could be a terrifying outcome in this respect. So this really has to stop, and I'm very thankful that the whole of the international community is saying clearly to Russia, you need to stop and to come back, to bring back your army and to come back to the negotiating table.